All right. I want to take a little bit of time to try to help you with those frustrating errors that some of you may be getting. Okay. Once again, we probably talked about this a little bit throughout all the courses of this week's videos in regards to possible errors you could get. But I want to talk about a few more and walk through this a little bit more and make sure you know how to fix them. Okay. I can't stress enough, this script needs to be exact. It can't be sort of exact, kind of exact, a little bit of exact. It needs to be exact. If you name something one way, you must reference it that way also. It doesn't assume anything. It runs top down. It must be in the exact same template and order in which we give you, okay? So follow that. Don't maneuver that. Step one, create tables. Step two, insert data. And step three, selecting, updating, and deleting. Basically, you can do any of these after you insert the data. You can't select anything until data is actually put into your databases and so on. All right? So a few things that I just want to make sure that I've seen with students actually get. Once again, if over here you fat finger this, okay, and you actually make this incorrect, and you came into this, you may get an error such as this because it doesn't exist. Cannot drop the table student this because it doesn't exist. Now, here's the difference of a student who's embracing the idea of being a programmer and a student who's still a little bit nervous about being a programmer. I don't care which one you are right now. You could be nervous. You're allowed to be that. But eventually we want to get you confident so you're not. But a person who's a little bit nervous sees red letters and panics completely and starts determining that I don't know what I'm doing. I want to change majors. I want to get out of here. I want to go do something else. Well, don't do that, because part of programming is dealing with and debugging errors. You're going to make them. We're human beings, okay? And so errors are okay as long as you embrace them and learn how to fix them. The first thing you need to do to learn how to fix them is read the error message. Sounds pretty obvious, right? Oh, gosh, you don't know how many people who just don't read the error message. Oh, my God, I got red. Bob, come here. Read it. Learn how to solve the problem. So T students, SD, because it does not exist. Well, it doesn't exist. You fat-fingered, and you put a D at the end of it. So it has to be exact. If you get something like that, go back, read it. Make sure you read it. Sometimes you might have to get your peer or your friend or somebody to look at the error to see if they can help you with it. That's okay, because sometimes you get so involved in what you're doing and you're so, into what you're doing, you think it should be right. I get that. And so based upon that, sometimes you need to step away from it and come back again and look at it with a different pair of eyes. Or if you're at a place that you're working with somebody that could be in the class, have them look at it for you, and you'll learn from this, okay? So again, this was a fat finger one. I see that happen quite a bit, okay? Make sure if it's called T students that it's spelled correctly, all right? So I'm basically stating that make sure your databases and tables are spelled correctly in the drops. Once again, I'll see things like this. We're missing a piece, and next thing you know, we get a lot of, in this case, a comma, and all of a sudden everything turns red, and the student goes, "Oh my God, everything's turning red!" And I hover over it. Once again, that's how you do it. And it says expecting a bracket or a select, and you're going, "Huh? I got all the brackets there and all the selects there, and so on." Why is it saying it? So it is possible that the error message is very vague and it doesn't give you the information you need to fix it. So expect that. What this is saying is you got a syntax error somewhere. Something's happening and we have a syntax error. Not quite sure what it is. Well, make sure every comma is there and every bracket is there. And because what it's going to do is cause headaches all the way through. All right? And so even like this one actually I think did tell you that it's expecting a bracket. So, but what I see a lot is people sometimes forget to put that bracket on at the end. Next thing you know, we get this right here, and it's saying expect incorrect syntax there. Read what it says, see if it makes sense, but more than likely it's a fat finger type thing. One thing I have not mentioned in my previous videos, which is actually a really good idea, is to ensure that everything is nice and lined up. See how it's nice and lined up here? We want it all nice and lined up. Why? Easy to find problems, number one. And number two, easy to read. Don't hand in stuff like this. See how fast this becomes really hard to read? Okay? Not only for you, the programmer, the person who develops it, but God, if I look at this, I'm going, what the heck am I looking at? But if it's just nice and straight, and it only takes a few seconds to ensure that, just tab over, create the tabs. If you run out of space, if all of a sudden this thing, a name comes out to here, tab everything over. But make sure it all lines up nice and neat. And I'm telling you, you'll find your problems a lot faster. And you'll recognize that the commas aren't there. And I made a mistake here or made a mistake there. That's how you fix that, okay? Inserts. A lot of times what I see is people forgetting these. They forget to close their quotes. Their beginning quote and end quote. And all of a sudden they get this and they're panicked and they're ready to change majors and everything else. And all it is that you forgot your quote. Okay. You may stare at it for an hour. That's one of the parts of it. But I'm just going to tell you right now, go find the easy things. Make sure anything that needs to be encapsulated in quotes is closed, beginning and end. Okay? Beginning and end. And see, there's Smith. See, look how weird that looks. It's going to sit back, and what's it going to tell me? The number of columns for each row in the table value constructor must be the same. That doesn't tell you at all that there's a missing quote. I agree with that, and that's confusing, okay? And so, but really when you see stuff like this, more than likely you're sitting back going, oh, okay, find the syntax, make sure you did everything correct. I actually took out Hernandez also. What was this? What does this one say? Number of, okay, same type of thing. It's all confused because you didn't close that quote. Make sense? Other error messages I get every once in a while is, let's see, I will get something like this. People start putting in data rather quickly, and so they put 13 in as the month, okay? Because you're just typing in numbers and you're not really thinking. The error message doesn't pop up until right here. The conversion of varchar data type to a date time data type resulted in an out of range value. What does that mean? Well, I'll tell you what it means. I don't really know what it means, what they're trying to say, but really what it means is this is a date. You told it was going to be a date. You said date of birth, data type is a date, and you gave it a non-date. 13 does not exist in months. So if you get something like that, make sure you give it a proper date. Make sure you only have 28 or 29 days in February. Make sure you don't have 31 days in February. It will give you an error. Does that make sense? All right. Other things you may get is you forget to insert one of these things and you miss it. Next thing you know, you have a bunch of lines sitting here. Seen this quite a bit. If you have something like this, number of columns, and everything looks good, make sure everything lines up. In this case, this might be a tough one to find. You missed the zip code right there. And once everything's up there, there's that. Yep, this stuff can get a little frustrating, so take your time. Try not to rush through it, okay? Make sure everything lines up in regards to the data you're going to insert. One other one that pops up every now and then that you're going to get, okay, is all of a sudden it sits back and it says, you'll get an error message saying STR address is not correct. So I showed you this before. Let's do cities, okay? It's not correct, right? So we did this right here, and you get this error message that says invalid column name STR cities. And you go up here, and you find it, and you say, I'll be dang, I did call it STR cities. That's an example. I know we didn't, but that's an example. So if all of a sudden you look at it and it says invalid column name, and you go back up here, and that's actually the column name you gave it, your database is sort of stuck. That's the technical term I'm going to use for this. It's stuck, okay? So I'm going to say this one more time. If all of a sudden this is underlined, and STR city is what you named it, but it's underlined. We got to imagine this. I can't recreate it. It only happens every so often. But I do see it enough that I want to make sure you're aware of it. If for some reason a column is underlined saying it's an invalid column, and you go up to your table and you say, that's exactly how I spelled it. I don't know why it's given to me. I'm going to tell you your database is stuck. Okay? Now, you might say, well, why? I'm going to go back to what I stated right off the bat when we started this week. This piece of software was not used for education. This piece of software is not meant to do what we're doing right now, constantly rerunning the script over and over again. So every once in a while, and some of you may never experience this, it may get stuck, okay? If it gets stuck, what do? Well, here's what you do. You come over to the database, okay? And you need to delete it and reinstall it again. So I'm gonna go ahead and copy this so I can have it for my reinstall. I'm gonna come up to my database, do a right click, and I'm going to delete it, okay? I'm going to click on close existing connections just in case it's open. If you don't do that, it's kind of a pain in the butt. So close all the existing connections, and I will now delete the database, okay? All cool, I'll come back over here again, add new database, put that back in there, adding it back in. Of course, the database doesn't have anything in it. I'll rerun the entire script and it all should work. If you still get that error, then you probably do have a syntax error somewhere, okay? But every once in a while, it's going to give you this weird, the column doesn't match. But if you go up and you see that it does match and you can't figure out what it's trying to say, delete the database, re-add the database, and then rerun the script, and you should be good to go. All right, that's some of the main ones people get all the way through this. Trust me, and there's a little frustration because there's a lot of typing here. Try to do cut and paste, but take your time. Most of the things that you run into is the fact you're trying to rush through it. So take your time and make sure you do it right, and you should be fine.